What is happening, guys? Welcome back to Redbeard's Garage. And if you watched the last episode on the YZ450, we got it on the ground. We do have a few things we need to button up, like our front shocks need to be stood up even further to fix the it's real soft in the front. So the closer you get to the pivot point, the softer the shocks will be, the suspension will be, and the more straight up you put your shock, the stiffer they'll be. So what we need to do is stand them up more. So we're probably going to move the top about 3 inches out to get it a lot stiffer, because we don't have a ton of travel on the front end. I think we have like 7 or 8 inches of wheel travel, which is not a ton, but it's enough to have a great time. A lot of times we overthink stuff in here and we think we need 15 inches of suspension travel on everything, and that's not the case. We need to mount the pedals on this. We need to mount the radiator. We need to adjust those rear shocks because we're having some clearance issues. And we need to put a floor pan in it and a firewall that's going to be a diamond plate aluminum. I like to do the aluminum because it gives you a little bit of grip. We need to start working on shifter, e-brake, things like that. We got to figure out how we're going to start the dang thing because it's kickstart, and we got to mount the exhaust and start doing the exhaust. So we got a lot of stuff to get done before this can be drove. So let's get right into it. Let's jump right into the pedals and floor pan. Guys, we're going to take a real quick second to talk about the sponsor of today's video, and that is Blaster. Specifically, their Multi-Max formula. So this is their lubricant, and it is a synthetic-based lubricant. We use this on tubing notching. We also use it on our drill press, our lathe, and we have a real quick tip if you're winterizing a vehicle, how to use this, and your engine is going to start every time after winter. So let's go check it out. So we have a Duro Max engine here, and if we was storing this for a long period of time, whether it was a pressure washer or a generator, I highly recommend trying this because it can help extend the life of your engine and also have a lot less maintenance to do when you pull it out of storage. So first off, you would of course want to drain any fuel out of the fuel tank. Fuel now is horrible quality, and if you have any kind of ethanol in it, ethanol draws moisture to it. So you could end up with some moisture in your gas tank or your carburetor. So the first thing we would do is shut off the fuel and let the engine run until the bowl is out of fuel as much as possible. So we've already pulled the air box off of this. You have this little metal gasket Here we're going to pull it off so we can expose the passages on the front of the carb. And if you notice, we have a hole there and a hole there. So what we're going to do is use our Multi-Max, and we're going to spray it inside the carburetor, and it's going to push all that old fuel out that's left over in there. And also the Venturi with the brass piece in the middle of the carb throat, we're going to spray down in it because that goes down to your main jet. And what this is going to do is push all the gas out of those passages and not let it set in there. Again, gas is very horrible quality, and you have a lot of brass parts inside the aluminum carburetor. So what Multi-Max does is it helps stop corrosion, and corrosion happens a lot when you have two dissimilar metals like brass and aluminum. It also is a water displacement, so this is going to keep the water from gathering and mixing with whatever's left over in the bowl. Because when you run a carburetor completely empty of fuel, it's not getting every bit of the gas out of it. So this is going to help prevent those passages, those real small passages and holes in your jets from clogging up with old nasty gas. So I highly recommend trying this out, and also look at all the Blaster products linked in the video description. They have a ton of stuff. They've really, their catalog is growing every year of the products that they're offering. And this is one of our most used products other than their brake cleaner in our shop. We love this stuff. If you have a squeaky door, this is going to help prevent it. Like I said, it displaces water. We use it on this weld table. We wipe it down. It stays super nice. It'll keep metal from rusting as well. So thank you, Blaster, for sponsoring today's video. Make sure to check out those links and support your boy by supporting Blaster. All right, so we got the floor pan all in, and I forgot to show you guys, I had to make this linkage for the brake. Don't know why I didn't film it, but it was just a piece of 3/4 inch. It was just a piece of 3/4 inch rod stock. I've made these little ears on my plasma table to bolt to the pedal, and then I drilled and tapped this. I think this was 5/16 for this Willwood caliper. So now we have brakes on it. So now I got to cut real fast the firewall. We're just using some diamond plate we had left over. If you notice, when I cut this piece in that last clip, I TIG welded it together in the center because I didn't have a full sheet that was big enough to do the floor, but I had 2 half sheets that was big enough. So I TIG welded 2 pieces together and made that floor pan, and the weld seam is under the center bar. So now we got a 18.5 by 36 inch piece, I think it is, to cover that back. We're not going to cover the corners with aluminum. We might cap those off with steel, but this is just going to mount on the inside of the chassis and give us just protection from heat, mud splashing, so our seat doesn't get all nasty. One thing I did mess up on when I put these seat frames in, I should have flipped them around the other side, because now to get to the nuts we got to go on from this side, and it's a pain. We did open these holes up more than we needed to, so we have wiggle room in bolting the seat down. And we have a bunch of little stuff left to do, so we'll get the firewall put on and figure out what we're going to do next. So we got the firewall cut and put into place. We still have a few bolts to put in, but basically I just drilled all these holes and put thread inserts in the chassis. So that's done for now. I'll have to finish it later. We still got to slap the seat in real quick, but this is a dry sump engine, which for those that don't know means there's no oil reservoir in the engine. Like most engines hold a quart to 2 quarts in this size in the engine. Well, this one does not. It used the frame of the bike. So I'm thinking that spot right there is going to be my oil tank reservoir. I mounted the radiator up here. I do have to buy a 45 degree to cut this lid area off and put it on a 45 so it sits flat. So you'd feel the radiator from right here instead of it being on that slant like that. And the gas tank I'm probably going to put right here in between these, make an aluminum gas tank, which we'll do that later. And then we'll be really close. You just got to do shifter and then run cables, and we got to do brakes. That's a very important one. We got to do it soon. So I'm going to design up a oil tank and we'll cut it out on the plasma table. Let's see what 60 degrees is. 60. Okay, so 60 degrees of a slant, I guess. Made a boo-boo. The diamond plate would be on the inside if I just welded this. So I need to reverse this shape, flip it, so I can actually just recut one and flip over the diamond plate and get rid of the rest of the drawing. So that's what I'm gonna do. So I can weld this one on. Then we can make the middle section that's gonna wrap, bend over, bend so we just have the outer weld. We don't have like 3 pieces in here. Okay, so we got the oil tank all done. I put the feel on an angle, just did like a fish mouth, 45-degree cuts on it. And this is actually the first project of aluminum I've ever welded, and I think I did pretty good. There's a close-up shot. I need to work on, which I kind of figured it out by now after welding this whole tank out, my start and stop. I need to move my tungsten around a little bit so I don't get like right here. I got a little tiny dimple, but we'll work that out. Like I said, this first thing I've ever actually welded other than a few test welds. So we did, I think those are 6 AN on top and bottom. So this is the return back into the tank, and then that's the out. And I let it raise so any kind of sediment, if any, will settle in the bottom of the tank and not get sucked back out through the system. So I think it turned out really good. Everything's, I actually had to do a gap weld down there, and I think it all turned out real nice. I'm happy with it. So again, that was my first tank I've ever made. So now we have some aluminum loaded up on our Avid CNC plasma table, and we're going to be cutting out the fuel tank that I've designed. And the place that the fuel tank is going to be is, there's only one downside to where it's going to be, and that's the exhaust will run 180 out of the engine like the factory one did, come through here, and the muffler will set back there in that opening. So the gas tank's going to set up here on these 2 rails and bolt here on the side. So I will have to do like a heat shield just so the exhaust don't ever, you know, dissipate any heat. And then we got to figure out something with our intake, because that's really close to the chassis. So I'll have to do something. I might make a weird aluminum intake and put the filter, I don't know, maybe in this area under the fuel tank. I don't know yet. But so I'm going to cut that out and we'll get it all put together. So when I start a cut on this Avid CNC, we have to make the machine go home, and that's what it's doing now. It's going to get all the way to the corner of X and Y, and it's going to raise Z up all the way. This does have torch height control, and we're using the mechanical switch, but it does have a ohm sensor that we're not using because you only really need to use that with thin metal. So we're just using the mechanical switch. So it's going to move all the way home. Then my computer is going to tell me when it's at home. So we'll go over here. It shows the coordinates that it's moving up here in the corner of the screen. See, it's home, and it says the limits have been set. So now we can load our G code up. We're doing gas tank 1. So there we have it. Now I can use the arrows on my laptop to move over to our material. I'm going to move down just so I can make sure I'm at a good starting point. I'm trying not to waste any material. So now what I can do is zero out my workspace by hitting 0x and 0y, and then go over here to regen toolpath, and now it's going to show me. Now I can move the torch around. It's really hard to show with the glare. If I can move my torch around, it's going to show me if I have enough material. You can see the red lines moving, so I can move it around to make sure my material is big enough and placed in the right spot. Go all the way up, and then we can just, you know, guide it over to make sure our material's big enough. So now that I've confirmed that, now all we have to do is hit cycle start G code. It's going to start the cut. This software that I run before this is called SheetCam, and it kind of makes the formula for this Avid CNC plasma table to know how it's going to do the cut. And it has all the information about the Hypertherm 65 in it. This is the Hypertherm 65C. So it's a pretty awesome unit. The main computer's over there. This has been the biggest game changer in tools in here. So I have one more piece to cut. I'm just using a bunch of scrap pieces of aluminum that I have, so I don't have to drag in a new sheet or whatever. So now I can put my other piece in, cut my other 2 sides, and then we can mock all this up and then find out what our top cap needs to be and all that. All right, so we finished out the gas tank. I'm only waiting on the fill neck to come in. I buy these fill necks off of Amazon. They're linked in the video description. They're only like 15 bucks. They're aluminum. They have a step down on the end, so you can bore, I think, a 1.5 inch hole, and they set perfectly on top of the tank. It's the same one I used on the oil tank. And then for the fuel outlet on the fuel tank, I'm just going to do probably a 1/4 inch MPT weld-in bung. You can get those as well on Amazon. I'll try to remember to put those in the video's links, because I normally buy 4 to 6 of these at a time to keep, because now that we're welding aluminum and cutting aluminum very quickly with the plasma cutter. I used to hate cutting aluminum because the skill saw is just so loud. Sounds like death in here. I still haven't pressure tested the tanks, because I swear somewhere in the shop I have some caps for 6AN to cap them off so I can pressurize the lid, but I cannot find them anywhere. So we got the oil tank mounted down below behind the firewall. I do have to trim the engine plate some, which I knew I was probably going to have to do this to fit the neck, the output of the oil. Should have just put it in a different location, to be honest, but everything looks awesome. I'm really happy with how it all turned out. So next episode we'll be doing brakes, doing the exhaust, and then off camera I'll probably do the throttle cable and clutch cable and stuff. We still have to put the recluse clutch in this engine, so that is still to come. So thank you guys so much for watching. This video was a little bit late because we're a little bit behind on schedule. We've got some things going on in the background that we're super pumped about. But thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to check out the links in the video's description, and make sure to support Blaster. We've been using them for years now, and we've gotten rid of every chemical in our shop, and we only use Blaster, and we absolutely love it. They have so many choices now. Back in the day, I remember they only used to be PB Blaster, the penetrating fluid, and now they have everything to replace pretty much anything in your shop. We really support Blaster, so make sure to support them if you can. It would help us out a ton, and they help us to keep these videos coming out. So big shout out to Blaster. We love them, and we'll be using them forever. So thank you guys so much for watching. Let us know what you think about the Yamaha build. It's coming along really nicely. We're going to be riding this thing in just a few weeks, and I can't wait to get it out of the shop and get to riding it, because we don't ride anything around here. We work all the time, so can't wait to have something running for a change. So thank you guys for watching. We love you, and God bless.